From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up on AgDay.
When I got back to the nursery, the orchids were already dead.
Farmers returned to the scene of devastation in Hawaii after a volcano wiped away their livelihoods. The latest on tariff relief payments.
We're definitely pushing.
And China makes a record-breaking buy.
AgDay, brought to you by the Chevy Silverado, the most dependable, longest-lasting full-size pickups on the road.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. It's confirmed China is buying American soybeans, and it's one for the record books. The latest USDA export report showing China bought 1.1 million metric tons of soybeans. To put that in perspective, it's the 9th biggest one-day buy in a decade. It's also the biggest soybean purchase by China in 4 years, and it's the biggest soybean buy of the year so far. So are we selling enough beans to China?
The trade was expecting more. There's rumors of 2.5-ish type million tons of sales. We only got 1.1 million. But I don't know that this is the one sale and then that's it. I think there's some optimism over the long haul where if we get an actual export program back, we could hopefully see a counter-seasonal type of a buying program from China. And let's remember, even at a reduced 84 million tons of soybean imports for the year, that's 7 million tons a month. So even half of that coming to the U.S., let's say starting March 1st, would be 21 million tons through the rest of the marketing year. And that's over 700 million bushels. So that could be very good news.
We'll have more on the market reaction coming up. And progress continues to be made on the trade truce with China. China's Ministry of Commerce saying the two sides have reached new trade agreements in several areas, including agricultural products, energy, and cars. China will also reportedly increase access to foreign companies. Beijing planning to replace an industrial policy labeled protectionist by the Trump administration. The idea to play down China's bid to dominate manufacturing and be more open to participation by firms from outside the country. And soybeans on the move to other places as well. The USDA weekly export report also showing sales of 792,000 metric tons. That's down 11% from last week, but up 25% from 4 weeks prior. Increases were reported to the Netherlands, Saudi Arabia, Japan, and Indonesia. And the U.S. now has a new market for wheat, Iraq. Iraq has signed an agreement with the U.S. to bring in American wheat and rice. That's according to the announcement from the Iraqi trade minister. He says the agreement signals a wider cooperation with American companies to supply Iraq with wheat and rice for next year. And we're continuing to ask about a second possible round of market facilitation payments. As we told you earlier this week, those payments are delayed right now. USDA still hashing out details with the White House and the Office of Management and Budget. Now, we told you the delay is due to optimism of China buying U.S. soybeans again and out of concerns about the cost of the program. I asked Deputy Secretary of Agriculture Stephen Sensky about this during AgriTalk. But how big of a help are the payments? Tyne Morgan asked ag banker Keith Knutson of Security Bank of Nebraska about that.
I mean, it could be in some cases the difference between profitability and making payments and not.
Really?
Yes.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture authorized up to $12 billion in aid earlier this year for ranchers and farmers hit hard by the trade war. President Trump expected to sign the Farm Bill early next week. The House voting on Wednesday, 369 to 47 in support of the legislation. It provides more than $400 billion for ag subsidies, conservation programs, and food aid. The measure reauthorizing crop insurance and conservation programs. It pays for trade programs, bioenergy production, and organic farming research. It also reduces the cost for struggling dairy producers to sign up for support programs and legalizes the cultivation of industrial hemp. House Agriculture Committee Chairman, Republican Mike Conaway of Texas, talked about that final bill. He said it looks, quote, stresses and strains across all of rural America, economic development issues, and just the practice of farming and ranching. One thing the bill doesn't include, tighter work requirements for food stamp recipients. That's a provision of the House bill that was celebrated by President Trump, but became a major sticking point during negotiations. Another contentious piece of the House original legislation, relaxing restrictions on pesticide use, that also didn't make it in the final text. Portions of the country starting the day off with some sunshine. Meteorologist Mike Hoffman has more in today's Crop Comments. Mike.
A great start to the morning in many parts of the country, and just like it was recently in Goodland, Kansas. Take a look at this beautiful sunrise shared with us by Jacob Reinecker. All those beautiful colors, wow. At last check, which was about 10 days ago, winter wheat conditions in Kansas were rated 16% poor to very poor. About 39% is listed as fair, while 45% was in good to excellent condition. Now, taking a look at the wind speed forecast, at least to start today, it's going to be kind of windy there in the southern portions of the plains. We'll have your hometown forecast coming up.
Keeping track of the shifting market prices has never been so easy. Get the latest commodity prices sent directly to your cell phone with market updates. Just text MARKETS8 to 31313 to get started.
Our grain market is going to be bearish, bullish, or neutral in 2019. We'll discuss coming up at the Agribusiness Desk. And later, part of an island paradise destroyed by a volcano, how one farmer is picking up the pieces in the country.
You could win a Ford F-150 Raptor in the Ag Explore Truck Sweepstakes. Enter at trucksweeps.com.
In agribusiness, the market apparently not impressed by China's big soybean buy. Here's more now from the floor of the CME in Chicago.
Sell the facts. Sellers certainly got the green light this week to get more active in the soybean market. Jan soybeans rallied almost $1.02 per bushel off of the September lows based on hopes of China buying soon. So it was a long wait, but China has become a more active buyer, and we could see a drop off in new interested buyers over the near term. If we see China buying 3 million tons of old crop soybeans, that's about 110 million bushels, and the USDA has not accounted for that already in their supply-demand table. U.S. ending stocks would come in at 845 million bushels. This is still a record high. If we see a 50% pullback of the entire September Dees rally, Jan beans might pull back all the way to 877 over the near term. An update on cattle market today. We're looking at the rally this week might have gone too far, just too fast. We need a decent rally in the cash market now to help rationalize the big premium of February cattle to the cash market. We're also in a period of seasonally weak beef demand, and that could be a limiting factor for any further upside short term.
Here at the Agribusiness Desk, we have Garrett Toy, Ag Trader Talk. Garrett, let's talk about 2019. You know, we sat back on 2018 as we started that year, really concerned about the overall ag economy, the picture of where we were headed as an industry, how much pressure we would have internally and externally. Here we are again, 2019. What are your thoughts on where we're headed?
Well, I mean, I think the difference between 2018 and 2019 is I think there's some general concern about a global recession and what the impact of the trade war is having on that. Okay. You know, you obviously have a president who's trying to talk down crude prices but trying to talk up soybean prices. So you can't have your cake and eat it too. Especially if we're going to have high soybean prices, you know, it helps to have $75 crude, not $50 crude. So the difference between this year and last year is last year we're kind of coming into the new year with potentially an inflationary standpoint, whereas this year we're coming in with more of a deflationary standpoint, especially with crude trade and 50. You've got rising interest rates, which, you know, obviously operating lines are getting more expensive. You know, what's that going to do to land prices, that sort of thing. But, you know, I think the bigger question is, you know, you've seen the volatility in the stock market, you've seen the volatility in the grain markets. Are we going to see that money come into the commodity markets?
That's always the big question, right? People leave equities when they get dangerous and they come to commodities.
Well, right? I mean, you look at, you know, there's, you know, several hedge funds had a horrible October, and they're laying off staff and that sort of thing. I think they're just trying to stop the bleeding rather than you know, look at, you know, where they're going to, you know, and might, with the rising interest rates, might sit on cash for the, you know, time being.
Okay, all right. Well, are you worried about the overall stock market shift in the last month or so?
Not really. I mean, the volatility is to be expected. I mean, we've had quite a run, so I mean, a setback is to be expected, I think.
Okay, so 2019, are you bullish ag, or are you bearish ag, or neutral?
I'm actually a little bit friendly soybeans if we do see the lower bean acres, and corn. I think we've kind of at least know that 350 is a value area. Whatever upside is, you know, remains to be seen. Depends on acres. All
right, well, we'll keep an eye on it. Appreciate it, Garrett. Thanks for being here. We'll be back with more Ag Day in just a minute.
Welcome back to Ag Day. I'm meteorologist Mike Hoffman. We have this slow-moving storm system moving through the southern Mississippi Valley. It's been mainly rain, and it's been some heavy rain in places, and it looks like that's heading into parts of Florida, northern Florida, and parts of Georgia and South Carolina as well. Touch of snow on the far western fringe of this, even though most of the lower 48 is pretty mild for this time of the year. Slow-moving storm system, you can see by this afternoon. You're only talking at just barely moving across the Mississippi River at that point. Widespread rains through the Ohio River Valley, down through the southeastern portions of the country. High pressure from the Great Lakes through the west, keeping things on the dry side in those places. Heading through tonight and into the day tomorrow as we start the weekend, you can see some more areas of rain. Parts of Missouri, northern Arkansas, southern and central Indiana. Still some showers and thunderstorms in many parts of central Florida into the Carolinas. A little bit of snow mainly in the mountains with that system coming in the northern Rockies. That one's kind of falling apart though. Next one will be another wet weather maker though. That'll be heading into the Pacific Northwest coast for the second half of the weekend. But you can see still some lingering showers through the Ohio Valley, southeastern Great Lakes, and into parts of the southeast. Precipitation estimate over the past 24 hours, some decent amounts already. Parts of the southern Mississippi Valley into the panhandle of Florida, adding in the next 36 hours. Heaviest amounts going to be right there from the panhandle of Florida into the Carolinas, mainly the coastal regions, and also some decent amounts there, southwestern Indiana all the way down into Arkansas, parts of Oklahoma. Snowfall is mainly going to be confined to the higher elevations out in the northern and central Rockies, with a little bit into the higher elevations, especially of northern New England. Temperatures then, we are looking at pretty mild in Florida and milder than normal for most of the lower 48. Highs in the 30s and 40s. You can see there in the northern plains. Low temperatures tonight going to drop into the teens in the northern plains, but everybody is really on the mild side for this time of the year. You can see lots of 50s for tomorrow afternoon. Here's the jet stream, and you can see this storm system with that bowling ball system really moving through. That's going to continue to move toward the east coast, and then we see generally west to east flow as we head into next week, keeping things on the mild side. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. First of all, Salt Lake City, Utah, partly sunny, rather mild, high of 42. Taking a look at Kansas City, Missouri, a mixture of sunshine and clouds with a high of 49. And finally, Indianapolis, Indiana, cloudy, times of rain, high of 50.
Coming up, remember chemistry from college? We head back to the classroom for a little Chemistry 101 when it comes to weed control next in today's Farm Journal College TV.
Join Andrew McCrae for Farming the Countryside, a farmer-focused podcast that is all about production agriculture. Farming the Countryside is available wherever you listen to your favorite podcast and is brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions, the world's largest provider of crop inputs and services.
Sometimes farming all comes down to chemistry. Ken Ferry takes us back to the classroom in today's Farm Journal College TV.
You know, if you stay in one rotation too long and use one set of chemistry too long, you'll select for whatever the weakest part of that management program is. So whether it would be things like, you know, cane or foxtail or water hemp or Palmer amaranth, that type of thing. And sometimes, especially in a Roundup program, we're using Roundup as your main chemistry and you get resistance to it, You may have to change the chemistry to get the weed under control. And you may have to change the crop, so a situation where guys may go into corn on corn so they can use other chemistry to manage something that has Roundup and ALS resistance, so they can use growth regulators and things like that. So again, it's not uncommon to have to change your rotation so you can change your chemistry completely to manage it. The big thing would be once you get that certain weed under control is from then on pay attention to the chemistry you're using. A lot of times farmers just use the same thing they did last year because it worked really well for them the last 2 or 3 years. And when they start stacking multiple years of the same chemistry up, then they're always going to sort or find the weakest link of it, and then that's going to be the weed that they have to manage in the future. So by mixing it up more often with different chemistry, different modes of action, one, they may not have to change their crop rotation just to manage a weed, but in some cases, especially with the Palmer amaranth, guys have had to change their rotation so they could manage that weed or get it under control.
Small farmers on the Big Island were rocked by a volcano about 8 months ago. Coming up, many are finally returning home and finding not much is left. A closer look at the damage in the country.
Ag Day, brought to you by new Delaro fungicide for corn and soybeans. Achieve personal best yields. In the country, sponsored by the all-new Kubota Sidekick, a utility vehicle that lets you climb more, cover more, tow more, and enjoy more. Visit KubotaUSA.com.
We've been keeping you updated on the devastation caused by the Kilauea volcano in Hawaii. Well, earlier this week, Ag Secretary Sonny Perdue got to see the damage firsthand to several small farms in the area. Big Island Video News talked with the owner of a small orchid farm. And that's going to wrap us up for today's program. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day in farm country.